Yes. Welcome, my beautiful and radiant friends, to the One Who Wakes dialogue on ever-expanding awareness. They said I look like Pinocchio. So let me go ahead and tell you a couple of rules since we have some new people here. There are no rules. You're absolutely free, each and every one of us, free to think, feel whatever we wish. If you don't like what I say, fine, don't like it. If something I say works for you, keep it. If it doesn't, throw it out. If I use a word you don't like, replace it with your own. If I say God and you want to call it something else, call it the universe. It doesn't matter. The words aren't really big deals. It's just about love. That's what it's really all about. But we're going to talk tonight about ever-expanding awareness. I've used this analogy when I came home after my own awakening. I told Cindy it was like I had been living life looking at a black and white TV with really, really bad sound. And in an instant, it's like it went to IMAX, which is the image on the other side. And that happens oftentimes in enlightenment, that there's such an explosive expansion of consciousness that it can't contract back to the TV. We've all had these little flashes where we get a little glimpse, but then it kind of contracts back. And all those are just indications that the big one's coming. It's going to happen. But we're going to talk about how we consciously move to expand our awareness and how we consciously can move to unlock our mind and our being from the misperceptions that we have and the beliefs that keep us very, very limited. And I'm going to show you, and I'm going to use a chart tonight that's going to show you some of the ways egoic consciousness tends to operate. And it operates, and it's been operating within your being so long and so habitually that we don't even question it. We don't even know we're doing it. That's the thing. I mean, if the voice in your head would stop for a day and you could actually see that, oh my gosh, what do you mean I can function without my mind? You'd be free. But we've heard that voice in our head for so long that we tend to believe it hook, line, and sinker. Or we choose to believe it when we want to believe it, and then we throw it out when we don't. And there never really is a consistent set of rules about how we do that. But anyway, we're going to talk about consciously moving from limited awareness to expanded awareness. And we're eternal beings. This is the process of our whole beingness, is this constant expansion of awareness. And in the moment of enlightenment, you kind of realize, oh my gosh, I'm not a body, I'm not a mind. I'm just the infinite field of radiant awareness in which any and everything that has ever been or will ever be or could ever be is all happening spontaneously right now. It's very, very cool. Very cool. But like usual, we're going to start off with a song tonight. Tonight's song to get us started is Jason Gray. I know many of you, and I've seen you on your path. And when I got on the path, I was kind of serious when I got started because I thought it was really important. My mind had convinced me that it was a big deal and there were big consequences. And oftentimes we go about the awakening process really, really seriously. And this song kind of speaks to, you know what, I just want to fall in love. And if you remember when you've fallen in love, it's just like your mind dispenses with things about the past. You're not analyzing the person about what the future might be like. You're just so in love and you're just so present. And that's really when the awakening got very exciting for me, is when I realized some of this. And I just started falling in love with God. And I didn't even know it, but I was really falling in love with myself. And when all that came together. So it's just another way, another symbol to get you to look at your path. And what if this is really just about allowing yourself to fall in love and removing all the barriers to that? That's a whole lot better path to walk than one of sacrifice and suffering and determination and effort. And because it really is about it being simple and easy. And if you've remembered falling in love, you didn't even really know you were doing it. It was kind of doing you, wasn't it? Well, if you'll approach your awakening in that way, love will wake you up. All your efforting oftentimes is saying to love, I think I know better. Let me do it my way, which you're free to do as long as you want. But love's going to catch you in the end.
mountain breeze to sweep me off my feet. It's gotta be more like falling in love than something to believe in. More like losing my heart than giving my allegiance. Caught up, called out, come take a look at me now. It's like I'm falling. Oh, it's like I'm falling in love. Give me words, I'll misuse them. Obligations, I'll misplace them. 'Cause all religion ever made of me was just a sinner with a stone tied to my feet. It never set me free. It's gotta be more like falling in love than something to believe in. More like losing my heart than giving my allegiance. Caught up, called out, come take a look at me now. It's like I'm falling. Oh, it's like I'm falling in love. Deeper and deeper, it was love that made me a believer in more than a name, faith, a creed. Fall in love with Jesus brought the change in me. It's gotta be more like falling in love than something to believe in. More like losing my heart than giving my allegiance. Caught up, called out, come take a look at me now. It's like I'm falling. Oh, it's like I'm falling. It's gotta be more like falling in love than something to believe in. More like losing my heart than giving my allegiance. Caught up, called out, come take a look at me now. It's like I'm falling. Oh, it's like I'm falling in love. I'm falling in love.
Woohoo! How about that? So I'm going to share with you things tonight. They may sound like beliefs, but it's just really the way I fell in love with love itself. And how I looked at my path of awakening and got really excited about it. When stuff would come up, I learned that, oh my gosh, this is showing me where I'm constricted and where I'm limited and where I'm stuck in old-timey, crappy beliefs and where I'm following rules. And there's freedom on the other side of it. So I would run at those blocks in my awareness. I was so excited to see them. You know, most of the time that stuff comes up and we're like, oh, I don't want to see that. I don't want to feel that. I ran right at them. I fell in love with the freedom that I knew was just beyond the fear. So the fear became my biggest ally in my awakening. Not to avoid it, but to look for it. Because the fear is what the ego uses to protect its identification. It throws up that big scary face, hoping we'll turn and walk away, and we won't actually look there. So the doorway to light, you know, it said the light when we dreamed up this dream, but then the ego promptly erased it and put fear is here. So we just never thought to look at that door. So if you want to wake up, look at every place where you're contracted or scared or fearful. And life's going to show them to you. If you're on this path and you're in this room, you've already started to see them. And they're going to continue to come. So we're going to walk towards ever expanded awareness, and I'm going to give you some tools tonight to do it consciously so that you stop acting asleep and acting unconsciously. thinking habituated thoughts based on beliefs that were buried so deep that you don't even realize they're there now. So we're going to use pizza as a symbol tonight. This is the pizza of awareness or lack thereof. So if you look on the left side, within our consciousness, if the pizza is a symbol and represents your consciousness, about half of it is dedicated to cataloging all your experiences in the past. Everything you've learned, every experience you've had, all your judgments, all your likes, all your dislikes, all your beliefs, all your everything. And then on the red side, about half of your consciousness is the future. All your expectations, desires, beliefs, fears, blah, 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 blah. That little tiny pepperoni in the middle, it's so small, it says present. That's proportionally about how much of our consciousness we are actually residing in the moment of now. Because we don't even realize how much our consciousness is holding this past-future database. But I mean, if you begin to look, you'll see, you think about lunch and you immediately go to restaurants you had in the past and items you like on those lists. You know what I mean? On those menus. So much of your consciousness is tied up in the illusionary game of the ego playing this past-future thing and creating this experience of linear time. And it's all designed to keep perpetuating a similar cycle. And of course, the ego thinks and tries to convince us that if we have stability and the sameness, that's when we'll have peace. Because it doesn't want you to actually be in the present where everything is new and fresh. So anyway, we're going to look at this, and what we want to do is expand the entire pizza to be the pepperoni, so that all of your consciousness is right here. And then you'll begin to see the world like IMAX rather than the little black and white TV. And you've all had these moments when you were so present that you completely lose track of time. It's like time just disappears because you're so in the moment. You let the past and the future go. And musicians talk about this. Athletes talk about being in the zone. That's what happens. But most of the time in our waking consciousness, we're so busy thinking that we restrict our awareness to this little tiny, tiny bit that's in the present. So, this is the ego body-mind maze. And I just want to tell you that if you've ever tried to find your way in your own mind, and I tried, very desperately I tried, it's a maze. And if you'll look closely, there's not, well, it looks like there is a tiny little exit up there, but there's not supposed to be an exit. I mean, I could never find, I think it was Einstein said you won't solve the problem with the same mind that created the problem. Well, the mind that thinks you're a body mind, that thinks you're in this world having this whole experience, is the trap. And we've all had that experience where something will happen and the mind tells us, oh, I got this great new plan. And off we go to do that new plan with all this enthusiasm. And we find the same stinking roadblock. And then the mind beats us down for how dumb we were to have tried that. And then it gives us a new plan. Well, we just run around this maze over and 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 over. Until at some point deep within your consciousness, there's a recognition. I'm calling Uncle, I'm calling Christ, I'm calling something, I've had enough. And this is the cycle of our own suffering. And the ego always tells us that there's no way out. Or it'll tell us there's a way out and convince us, and we run down that path only to find the dead end. And then the mind tells us, the ego tells us all these reasons why it was that way. And it would have worked out if so-and-so hadn't have done something, and we usually believe that stuff, and off we go to the next plan. But anyway, Cindy, if you'll read for us, this is what Jesus tells us in the Course in Miracles about the ego's intention.
Seek and do not find. This is the one promise the ego holds out to you, and the one promise it will keep. Do you realize that the ego must set you on a journey which cannot but lead to a sense of futility and depression?
We've all felt that futility and depression. We all have. Trying to make life work. Trying to find peace or happiness. But it's right there, seek. Because if you're seeking, what do you have to believe in order to be seeking? Look under the seeking. You have to believe I'm actually separate, or I'm lost, or I'm somewhere I'm not supposed to be. And oftentimes the ego will run you around the whole maze, ran me all the way to India, for God's sakes, looking in seeking, but all the seeking is doing is actually reaffirming the belief that you are separate. It's subtle. I mean, there can be authentic seeking, but seeking also becomes the egoic addiction. And I mean, there are many people who, it's like the spiritual buffet. They run from one path to another path to another path to another path because the ego's told them that salvation is in the seeking. So if you've, and I've heard people in here describe yourself as a seeker, I would suggest you just describe yourself as a finder. Think of it kind of like this, like you lose your keys, your car's in the driveway, so you know the keys have to be in the house. So it's a lot easier to find what you know is where it's in the house rather than your car being somewhere else and I'm seeking for keys and I don't have a clue where they are. I can tell you, just as Jesus told us a long time ago, the kingdom of heaven is within, the truth is within. So just go find it. Don't seek outside of yourself anywhere. Go find the truth within. But Jesus goes on to tell us the secret to salvation, the secret to finding the truth.
The secret of salvation is but this, that you are doing this unto yourself. No matter what the form of the attack, this is still true. Whoever takes the role of enemy and of attacker, still is this the truth. To seek and to not find is hardly joyous. Is this the promise you would keep? The Holy Spirit offers you another promise, and one that will lead to joy. For His promise is always, seek and you will find. And under His guidance you cannot be defeated. His is the journey to accomplishment, and the goal He sets before you He will give you. For He will never deceive God's Son, whom He loves with the love of the Father. The Holy Spirit guides you into life eternal, but you must relinquish your investment in death, or you will not see life, though it is all around you.
So everything we experience, everything without exception, we're doing to ourselves. Because of course there is only one of us. But how many times have you heard or probably said yourself, they made me so angry? They may have done something, but you and you alone chose to be angry about it. It may have happened, the choice may have happened so deep in your subconscious that by the time the rage and anger rose up into your awareness, you didn't even recognize it was a choice, but you choose it. So everything that we have experienced in our lives that's suffering, we choose. We choose our own confusion, we choose our own bewilderment, we choose our own suffering, we choose our own rage, we choose it all. And this is a really, really important point. If you're not prepared to take 100% responsibility for every thought you think, every feeling you feel, every word that comes out of your mouth, every behavior, everything, you're not going to wake up. Because I can tell you right now, the ego is a victim, and the ego never wakes up. Never, ever, ever wakes up. And the ego has habituated in our consciousness patterns of thought, so they're happening almost automatically. They're happening unconsciously, but yet we believe them. And we repeat the cycles over and over and over and over. So tonight, I'm going to give you a tool, a map, to show you how the ego does this. Cindy's got some copies that she's going to give out. But deep within your mind, the ego there in the center, it's always focused on two things. That the body's survival, because the ego believes it is the body, and without the body it's going to cease to exist. And that it's always a victim, or it tries to make you believe that you don't have a choice, that things are happening to you that you don't choose to happen. And I'm going to share with you some of the primary ways in which we do this. This is the mechanism which is doing the whole crazy maze. But the ego will rise up in paranoia. We've all experienced this. We just know someone's out to get us, or the mind tells us so-and-so's doing me wrong or talking to me around behind my back. It uses paranoia to perpetuate the idea that there's another person and that something outside of you can be done to you. So whenever you're feeling any degree of paranoia, that's an indicator that that is egoic consciousness. The spirit is one. What's it paranoid of? Itself? I don't think so. It loves itself. One of the other tricks that the ego uses like crazy is rationalization. Oh my gosh. I used to do this all the time. I could rationalize any choice beforehand and then rationalize it completely afterwards, whether it was a good one or a bad one. Or if I thought it was a bad one, I could rationalize that, no, it was really a good one. And we've all done that, and it's this incessant, crazy game that happens within your consciousness. The other one, we try and justify everything that we do. Like we feel like we have to justify it to others. And again, the ego's just got you believing there's an other over there and you need their approval. But we're always trying to, I did that because, and always trying to use some sense of justification to say there's a reason I behaved in this way, and that reason always is outside of me. Rejection. Oftentimes we just reject ideas off the cuff. And that's one of the ways the ego, it doesn't want to threaten what it believes, because ultimately the ego is nothing but a belief. This is why we protect beliefs so much. This is why we have arguments, because we want to protect our belief. This is why we have wars, because we're trying to protect our belief. And all of that stems from our identification with a voice in our head that is nothing but belief. And when we move our consciousness beyond the need to believe, because belief, and if we've all had beliefs and found out our belief was categorically untrue. I mean, we just look at humanity, we believed the world was flat, and we actually killed people who said it wasn't. And then we come to find out, oh my gosh, it actually isn't flat. But the ego will defend its beliefs like crazy. And you've all been in these arguments, and at some point in the argument you recognize you're wrong, but you keep arguing. Rather than going, oh, I see, you're right, I was wrong. We'll keep the argument going because, damn it, we want to be right just about the fact that there's difference. So watch the way the ego just wants to flat out reject ideas because they threaten ideas that are already held. And Jesus reminds us in A Course in Miracles, we have to question every belief. Everyone, not just, we can replace the belief I'm a body with I am the Son of God. Wow. Well, we replace one group of words for another group of words. None of the words are true. It's about moving beyond belief to experience. And then up at the top, the ego is the judge, jury, and executioner. And if it can't judge and condemn someone else, it will judge and condemn itself. And in either case, it's usually pretty harsh with its punishment, is it not? You're either pretty harsh on yourself or you're harsh on someone else. And the rationalization behind this within egoic consciousness is if I can blame somebody else, God's going to punish them and not me. If I'm the innocent one and everyone else is not, I'm safe. And God's going to punish everybody else. That's what's behind this business of determining guilt and innocence, because the Spirit knows you only as God created you, absolutely perfect, absolutely innocent. Nothing you've ever done matters. Nothing you'll ever do matters. So if there's any movement within your consciousness of judging, then you know that's egoic consciousness, period, because the Spirit does none of that. Now, I'm not talking about choice. Choice is picking a flavor of ice cream. We all know what judgment is. You know when you're condemning someone. You know when you're judging them as bad. And it's not so much what the ego tells you the judgment is. It's just that the ego's got you convinced there's somebody outside of you. That's all it cares about. It doesn't care about what the judgment is. Even if you see someone outside of you, and if you've noticed, you either say, you're better than that person or you're worse than that person. When's the ego ever told you, I'm just like that person? Actually, I am that person. If you hear that, that's probably the Spirit talking to you. But egoically, we're either better or worse. And the ego's equal opportunity. It'll be better than someone just as readily as it'll be worse. It'll be self-righteous and self-loathing just as readily. It doesn't care. And it's beat you back and forth. We've all experienced that from one extreme to the other. Just to perpetuate the idea of separation. The most sinister one down at the bottom is the ego believes that it rewards itself as good. Like, your judgment is so much fairer than everyone else's. And then we pat ourselves on the back in congratulation that we're being so generous with our judgment. Or, here's one, if someone is having a bad time, we believe in egoic consciousness, we're supposed to worry for them. And we reward ourselves for disturbing our own peace for someone else, as though that's a good thing to do. So it's sinister. It even tries to take behaviors that it perceives to be good, which is still propagating the whole ideas of separation, but put a nice label on them. Jesus calls us in the Course the face of innocence. When he was working with me on this topic, he called it the plastic face of innocence. That kind of fake smile and all the ways the ego gets us to buy in to everyone's story. And we all do this when we gossip. We've all experienced this. Someone starts the drama, and then we jump into that drama, and usually we want to one-up them with a drama of our own that was better or bigger or different or worse or whatever than the one they're experiencing. I mean, you hear this with older folks all the time about the surgery, and then, oh, well, I had that surgery, and I had it done on both knees at the same time, kind of thing. And all that is just egoic consciousness trying to say, I am different than you. I am different than you. I am different than you. And it uses all these tricks to perpetuate it. But the ego then can't stand that it feels this way, and projection is its primary tool for getting all this judgment, all this fear outside of itself and saying, I'm not the cause of these choices. I'm not the cause of my fear. I'm not the cause of my paranoia. I'm not doing all this. It's because of all these other things. Now, we can project in an infinite number of ways, but these are some of the primary ones. We project on our parents all the time. If they hadn't have done this or they hadn't have done that, or if they'd acted the way they were supposed to have acted, or whatever, if they hadn't have got divorced, or if they had got divorced. I mean, you'll find that the ego will work either side of the equation just as readily. But we project on parents, and that takes us to the next one, which is this big trick of time. Ego creates time to keep you in the past or in the future, to keep you out of the present. But primarily it uses the past to say, oh my God, I am the way I am now because of something that happened in the past. Someone mistreated me, or I did something so unforgivable that we keep holding on to the past in order to hold the guilt. The truth is, the past does not exist. If anybody believes it is, then show me you can move your body to last week. Or that you can move your body to next week. They don't exist. They're only conceptions. They're only concepts within the mind, within egoic consciousness, and they're used to keep us bouncing back and forth between the past and the future so that we won't be present. Because if you believe that you did something in the past that was bad and you're guilty of it, then you're just stuck. You're stuck. You cannot get out of that sin. You're already damned to hell, so to speak. Or you're at the mercy of someone else forgiving you for what it was you did. And if they don't forgive you, they can keep you in prison. And those are all kinds of agreements within the egoic consciousness. The truth is, you're free to be free of everything you ever did. You're free to choose that in this moment and let it all go. But if you look within your consciousness and look at the stories you tell about the past, when you talk to people about either happy ones or sad ones. They're the same kind of stories. The egoic consciousness is holding on to them just to keep a self-identification. One of the ego's favorite projections is to project on God. I didn't create this world. I didn't create all this suffering. This ain't my fault. This is God's fault. If God loved me, I wouldn't be experiencing any of this. It's God's fault. And if we can't put it on God, we'll just put it on the man. We'll just generically project it out into space, just like throwing spaghetti on a wall. We don't care who it is, just so long as I'm not responsible for what I'm feeling or what I'm thinking. And then another kind of sly trick, the ego will even project on the ego within your own consciousness. I mean, how many of you have developed this capacity to see something and then witness it and go, oh, that's the ego? Well, it's only the ego that's now manifested itself as two things in your consciousness that's judging the first one, so you won't look at this one and you'll identify with this one, but yet that's still the same ego. I mean, your consciousness is a maze. Yes, it's tricky. It's infinitely subtle. But the ego will do that, or it will, the whole idea of the devil was the ego's creation to say that it was the devil's fault. So that you won't look within your own consciousness. It's just some way to say the fault is outside of you. On the other side, of course, we try and project it on others. And it's not just that we project bad things on others. We project good things. Many of you project enlightenment on me. The ego wants to get everything that it doesn't want to be outside of itself. It wants to get guilt outside of itself, and it doesn't want to be awake. So it says, he's awake. So it'll project even the truth outside of itself, not just its illusions. The world, we project on the world. Oh, and the ego loves to project on the body. Its own thing, its own self-loathing. One minute it loves it, the next minute it's mad at it because it doesn't behave in the way it wants it to behave. So it's just this self-turning within itself. Some other ones, of course, government. We love to just anything to say it's someone else's fault. And then the last one, chance or bad luck. There is no chance. There are no accidents. This universe is not one that operates through randomness. The ego desperately wants it to be that way, but that's not at all the way it is. So I share this with you only to give you some sense, some tool to use if you find yourself in that maze. These are some of the ways that the ego will do that. So whenever you're experiencing any of this, and I can tell you, anytime you're experiencing a negative thought or a negative feeling or sadness, anything that's not happiness and joy, it's only the ego. Because the spirit has got none of that going on. None whatsoever. So this goes on and on and on. This chart could go on into infinity. These are just kind of some big ones. But the point is, you'll never find your way out of that maze if you rely on your own mind, your own intelligence, your own smarts. I'm telling you, the ego is so good at what it does. It knows every trick and it's pulling them on you. You're not going to pull one on it. The only way to wake up is to get some inner guidance. And in my case, that was Jesus. That's the name I attributed to the inner guide that arose within me. But if you don't have something within you saying, wait a minute, look at this a different way, rather than the way you habitually look at it, you'll just keep on doing what you're doing and not know it. It's kind of like you pick up a hammer and you're hitting yourself with it. At some point, you have to recognize what you're doing so that you'll stop. But you've been doing it so long, you don't even know that you're doing it. The thing is, you've been hearing that voice in your head your whole life. So you think it's you. And it's not. But there is a way out. There is a way out. So the kind of forgiveness that Jesus taught when he walked the planet and then he teaches in the Course in Miracles is that what you think has occurred has not. This is a dream, none of it's real. But the ego uses forgiveness in a very different way. But true forgiveness says, oh, I see, I'm judging that, God is the cause of my suffering. And when you get with the Holy Spirit, true forgiveness will tell you, and I put up there Holy Spirit, higher self, God, true self-love. Doesn't matter what you call it. Doesn't matter what you call it. But you cannot choose again until you realize, one, what you're doing, and two, that there is another choice. The ego doesn't want you to have a choice. Or if you're going to choose, it wants to give you all the alternatives, which it's very, very happy to do. So the key to awakening is for your awareness to grow greater and greater and greater where you're doing this unconscious, asleep behavior. Allow the guidance within to illuminate that for you, and then choose again. Marion, can I use our example of I know? So when I showed up in the course group about a year ago, Marion and I kind of were drawn together right off the bat. And it was clear that she was authentically ready to awaken. So we started to do some work together. And one night we're walking out of the course group and something rolls out of her mouth. And I said, did you hear what you just said? And so she kind of stopped. And so I said back to her what she said. And I illuminated kind of what she would have to believe in order to even say that. And she was like, oh my gosh, I know that. And I was like, bullshit, you don't know it. If you knew it, you wouldn't have done it in the first place. But the ego tells us all, oh, I know. If you knew, you wouldn't have to say you know. But even in because the ego will, just because it understands a concept intellectually, it mistakes that for knowing. And it puts an I know this concept, it puts it in a box, it puts an I know bow around it, and it pats itself on the back for now having understood this intellectual concept. Well, that's like you reading a book and saying you understand what an orgasm is. An intellectual understanding is nothing like the experience of knowing. Knowing comes only through direct experience. Only. That's the only way you can know. So I caught Marion in her attempt within the egoic consciousness to stop at I know this concept, therefore I know the truth, because I have a concept about it. Rather than moving and questioning and challenging her mind to say, I really don't know. If I had known, I would never have said that. I would have known and I wouldn't have done what I did. You guys following me? So it's that kind of level of ever higher awareness, ever higher of inner awareness and self-scrutiny about what you're doing. Because the vast majority of the time, we're just living and we're not paying any attention to the stuff that comes out of our mouth or the thoughts that go through our head. Byron Katie's whole work, for any of you who know Byron Katie, her first question is that thought true? How many of us actually question most of what we think? And those of you who are Course in Miracles students, how many of you even question the correction that the Course in Miracles tells you to make? Because the correction isn't the truth either. It's pointing you to the truth. But we don't even question. And Byron Katie's second question is, are you sure it's true? Are you absolutely sure? Because the ego will rise up, of course it's true. Yes, that is a bad thing. Well, how do you know? I mean, is it really real? How do you really, really know? And if you start to explore very, very deep within your consciousness, you'll come to the experiential realization that no thought is true. None. Zero. None. They're all symbols, they're all words to try and explain experience. And on the level of experience is the only place anything true exists. Because, of course, that's the fundamental baseline of consciousness. So I only share this with you that even someone who's been doing the course for a long time and very highly conscious, the ego's still tricking us, still tricking us. And it's not, and then when she recognized the trick, then she was able to stop it. And then she was able to question her mind on an ever deeper level, and it led to her own awakening. But we won't awaken unless we're prepared to question absolutely, absolutely everything. Everything. Even the holy grail of, I'm the Son of God. Well, that's a beautiful thought, no doubt. But I can tell you, it doesn't hold a candle to the experience of knowing it. Not insisting it through mantra. And if you watch, the ego will try and use a louder voice oftentimes when its idea is threatened, so it says it louder as though it's more true. It's kind of crazy the way it does that. So the only way you can do this is with an inner guide. And discerning the voice, and for me it was a voice. For some people it's not a voice, for some people it's just a knowing. Some people kind of call it a feeling sense in their heart that's telling them something different than what their mind is telling them. Either way, you have to make a choice which one of those are you going to kind of trust. And early on any path, it's confusing as hell. Because don't think the ego doesn't have a response to anyone who gets on a spiritual path. I mean, it's been down this path before, and it's really better at diverting people back into egoic consciousness than, the ones of us who actually get to the light. And we're all going to get to the light because you're actually the light already. You just finally stop denying it. But awareness is the key, and it's all conscious choice. But the unconscious has to come into your awareness and become conscious before you can choose again. You can't change a belief unless you're aware that you have that belief. And you have beliefs within your consciousness that you don't even know you have. They're so deep down. So when something happens or you believe something, well, what would you have to believe for that thought to be in your consciousness? The thoughts are the distraction. The ego tries to keep you watching the things go across the screen rather than looking at the film in the projector that says what you really believe. So always look under the thoughts. What would I have to believe for that thought to even arise in my consciousness? What would it have to be? There has to be a belief there or the thought couldn't come. It just can't. And when you ask questions, what would you have to believe to ask the question? Because on the level of spirit, there are no questions. There are no questions. Questions can be a helpful tool in awakening, but they can also become a trap. If you say, how did the universe begin? Well, clearly what you're really making a statement is, I believe that there's a universe. But the ego will use all these questions like, I really want to know. I really want to know. But the question is really an egoic affirmation of separateness, disguised as a question. So questions can be helpful, but they can also be the trap. But if you'll look under them and you'll keep looking deeper and deeper and deeper in your consciousness, you'll start to uncover these unconscious beliefs, and then you can look at them. You can go, is that true? How do I know that's true? Did I just learn that from somebody? I mean, most of us here, our minds are full of stuff that everybody else wanted us to learn. Our whole educational system is based on, you learn what I learn. And we propagate the same consciousness over and over and over and over. And we actually discourage kids from thinking for themselves or making up their own mind. We tell everyone what they're supposed to think. And at some age, usually we kind of relent and give in because it's just too damn painful to be in resistance. And we fall deeper and deeper asleep. So look at questions, look at thoughts, look at feelings. What would I have to believe to even be feeling this feeling? And start to examine those ever deeper, ever deeper. But just like going in a cave, do not go deep without the light. Don't go into a cave in the dark, because all you're going to find is gobbly-gooblins down there. If you go only with the ego, you'll get lost in yet a deeper level of the maze. So always go with the light. Jesus reminds us in the Course in Miracles, he calls these things rings of fear. He said, let's go look at these rings. Take my hand, I'll go with you. I've been there. If you go on any journey, it's really helpful to take a guide. It's all been done. Buddha did it. Jesus did it. Many have done it. Take a guide, and your guide is within. If I can help any of you in any way, I'm happy to. But usually it's to turn you back into your own guide. So you get ever better awareness of your own truth within. So find your guide and follow it. And there are discernment issues, but you'll come to trust it ever greater and ever greater. So the ego showed us seek and not find. This is the exit.
I am responsible for what I see. I choose the feelings I experience, and I decide upon the goal I would achieve. And everything that seems to happen to me I ask for and receive as I have asked. Acknowledge that you have been mistaken, and all effects of your mistakes will disappear.
Most of you have been on the path long enough that something has arrived in your consciousness that has been a long pattern, and finally you recognize, I don't have to do that anymore. I can let go of that. I can put that down. And it's incredibly liberating. It's very exciting to me to go, I don't have to react to that person the way I always have. It's very, very liberating. Very liberating. But you can't do that unless you recognize you're responsible for everything that you see. Everything. And I don't mean just see with the physical eye. I mean you're responsible for the meaning you attach to everything. And, one of the favorite things the ego likes to do is people watch. And we've all done it. You sit in the mall or somewhere and people walk by and boy, they've not gone 20 feet and you've got a whole story for them. You've made up a whole story for them. Or they're limping and there's a whole story that's just what the ego does. And all it's trying to do is propagate separation. But you're responsible for the meaning you attach to it all. Nobody else is. Even if someone told you what beliefs you're supposed to believe, you're free to stop believing them in any moment. You don't have to continue to believe them. So again, it's back to this responsibility. And you choose all the feelings you experience. All of them. All of them. You never have to choose to feel sad. Ever. Ever. You never have to choose to be angry. Ever. And this is really what awakening is. You realize, oh my gosh, I was acting asleep. I was habituating unconscious behavior, and I don't have to do that anymore. I and I alone am responsible for what I think and what I feel and what I experience. But you'll see the ways in which that sounds really exciting, but ooh, you kind of like being able to blame that person. Because it's easier to blame them and feel the feeling than go, oh my God, I'm doing this to myself. Because when the ego gets something like this, which it did for me, then it turned around and was like condemning me. The ego won't miss an opportunity to judge you as inadequate. So it turned around and judged me for the fact that I had been doing all this stuff. Rather than rejoicing that, oh my God, I have a new choice, the ego wanted to immediately try and stop my progress. So that is the exit. Awareness is the key, and you hold the key. Nobody else can do it for you. No one else can wake you up. No one else can guide you. And each one of us have our own individual stories. You and you alone hold the key because you and you alone are choosing what you experience. And when you start choosing consciously, awake and aware, it'll get too painful to choose pain. When you recognize I'm only hitting myself with the hammer, you won't keep it up for very long. You won't. You can't. It's just too painful. So we get to the pizza of total awareness. So that was what the experience of enlightenment was, is it's all in the now. Nothing that happened in the past matters. No decisions made in the past need to affect the decision I'm making right now. And no decision I make right now will in any way affect the future. That's what Jesus calls the holy instant. Because each of us right now, most of the time when you're in now, there's never anything wrong. Except the ideas, the mind's ideas about it, which have to be on the path, in the past. Each of you would be back to your full enlightened state in an instant if you could just have amnesia. If you could just forget everything you ever thought you experienced, you'd be in peace. Because you wouldn't know any better. You'd be in your natural state, peace. You'd be in the now. And what would the problem be? Nothing. Nothing. And living a now-based life is incredibly joyful and incredibly peaceful. And you look on the world with complete innocence because you've woken up from that dream that everybody else is still running around dreaming. You know, it's like being the only sober guy in a bar when everybody's drunk. And they think you're the funny one because you're not drunk. But live in the now. Because you can, in this moment, allow anything that ever happened to you to be gone. I mean, whenever you're happy, you have let it go. All those sad memories, they're not in your awareness, so you're happy. Why bring them back into your awareness? Every time you do it, you're using your infinite power of consciousness in the now to bring an old experience back and create it again. Don't do that. Why? You don't have to do that. We don't have to do that ever. Ever about the past. And nor do we need to create these fantasies that happiness will come at some mythical future date, or awakening for that matter. That awakening will come at some mythical future date, and then you'll be happy. You're free to be awake and present and happy in the now, right now. And then just don't ever leave. Just stay there. And there's no thought in now. If you look, all your thoughts are only about the past or the future. And even if you're thinking the thought, I'm in the now. I'm in the now. I'm present. I'm present. That moment's gone and the words are trailing it. And you're actually missing the next moment of now because you're talking about that one that was 3 nows ago. You'll come to a point when you realize you can function just fine without that voice in your head. And that it's not your friend, it's not your ally, and it's not who you are. And nobody's thinking your thoughts for you. Nobody's putting them in your mind. You're creating it all yourself. And I encourage you to recreate and use this tool and use your inner guide and heal all those misperceptions that are in your mind. Because you're only experiencing that thing because you have beliefs that say that's what you should be experiencing. So, that's the way it works out. I love pepperoni pizza, by the way. That's why I use this example. So, we'll open up for questions, but we're going to start with a song from Salvador about being aware. Ready?
Even in the little things that never seemed too big to me, and the things I thought didn't matter much at all. As simple as my daily bread, to the strength I need to get out of bed when I fly or when I'm about to fall. Oh, it's you and me that I fail to see. Make me aware, make me see that everything I am is not all about me. So take my word, turn it around so that think about the things you said that in this moment seem so far away. Help me see the guarantees that first brought me to believe, so I can make it through another day. Oh, it's you and me that helps me breathe. Make me aware, make me see that everything I am is not all about me. So take my word, turn it around, so that the obvious can finally be found. Make me aware I have been missing so much, not recognizing your touch or acknowledging that you're the reason I'm even here. I have been missing so much, not recognizing your touch. Make me aware, make me aware, and help me see that everything I am is not all about me. Take my word, turn it around, so that the obvious can finally be found. Make me aware, make me
My favorite line in that song is, so that the obvious can finally be found. And I'll tell you the same thing that every other enlightened being has ever said. You are what you seek. Nisargadatta said, you are the ultimate reality. And for Marion, she and I have talked about it. When it happened to her, she said, oh my God, it was there the whole time. It was right there. It's so close. It's so present. It's so illuminated. It's ridiculous how we can't see it. But we don't see it until we don't. You know, our self-deception on the dream state is so good at what it does, because of course we use our own divine power to create it. But it is so close, and it is already within. And you cannot miss it. The target is so big. And no matter what the ego tells you that you've gotten off track or you've taken a wrong turn or you've backed up, that is impossible. It is absolutely impossible. You cannot screw it up. You can't screw it up. You can't. So, find the obvious. Look within your consciousness and start sniffing around for what never changes. Ever. And follow that thread. And if it changes, that's a clue that that's not really where the truth is. Because the truth doesn't change. That's the nature of truth. There we go. Any questions tonight about awareness? About ever expanding awareness? Cool. Then we did a good job tonight. Got a couple of announcements, and we'll talk about the love offering. Got some bumper stickers. Some folks had asked for bumper stickers to put on their car. So there's the One Who Wakes eyeball. You can put on your car. That's just a symbol for Christ's vision, seeing only one. The One Who Wakes website is now up. And for those of you who will watch this later on Vimeo, if you want to make a donation, In the upper right-hand corner, there's a little give button, yellow button. Just click on it, and it'll take you to PayPal. You can make a donation there. For those of you who are here in person, there's a basket on the other side of the fireplace. We'd certainly appreciate a love offering. Love's always free, but we still have light bills and things of that nature. There's an email sheet for some of you new people if you're interested in being on the One Who Wakes website. Upcoming events. Next week's movie is Waking Up to the Movies, and it's going to be about this. This guy's going to go from deeply unaware and realizing he is screwed if he doesn't get some help, and finally he allows help to show him the way out. So it's a beautiful movie, and it's called Snow Walker. And then for the end of the world on December 21st, we're going to have the end of the world dialogue, but it's not going to be the end of the world. It's just going to be the end of the world of fear. Now, this whole cosmos is a symbol of the idea of separation, but I'm going to show you symbol after symbol after symbol after symbol that our one mind is waking up to itself. I'm an example of that. Marion's an example of that. Each of you, Paula came in and said, I'm waking up. And I'm like, yes, you are. Woohoo! Everybody's a symbol of that. There's more about awakening on this planet than there's ever been. Jesus was lonely when he was here. He was the only one, but he was the whole one. Anyway, the end of the world. And then right after Christmas, to wrap up the year, because of course in Christ we're promised the ultimate gift. We're promised eternal life and eternal peace. And I can tell you from my own experience that is the ultimate gift. But we're going to see a movie for Waking Up to the Movies, The Ultimate Gift, on December 28th. And very excited that our first dialogue in 2013 is going to be Marion. One Who Wakes is not about John Mark. We are the one who is waking. We all are. This isn't about John Mark. So with great joy, Marion's going to come sit as an awakened one in this seat and tell us some of her story. So I'm really excited about that. Great. I love you with an infinite love and a perfect, undeniable, undescribable, unlosable peace. Have a wonderful night.